Now at 6, we'll take you into the courtroom as the state lays out new details about how Savannah may have died and what Hayne did when he walked into his apartment and found Brooke Cruz with Savannah Graywind. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall was in the courtroom all day. She tells us what the state told jurors about William Hayne's role in the murder of Savannah. Angeline?
Dana, Kirsten, here at the courthouse, the state laid out what they believe happened to Savannah, of this girl offering to help a neighbor out of the goodness of her heart, only to be killed in return. Brooke Cruz has already admitted that she lured Savannah into her apartment, and after she was lured, that's when Brooke Cruz says that she did the C-section as Savannah was lying on the ground. That is the moment when Savannah is on the ground that they say William Hayne walked in.
At that moment, Will opens the door and says, essentially, what the F?
As Hayne sat with little emotion throughout the day, the state then continues the scene, saying Cruz asks Hayne to help her. And because William Hayne loved Brooke Cruz, he wanted to protect her, so he did. They describe him as rolling up his sleeves, then taking a rope and tying it around Savannah's neck, ensuring that Savannah would never take another breath.
When I talked about rolling up the sleeves, that's what Will does. He rolls up the sleeves, goes and gets a rope, puts it around her neck, pulls it tight, so if she's not dead, she is now.
The defense denied these claims, even though his DNA was found on those ropes. And they say this entire rope story is unreliable because it's coming from Brooke Cruz, whose story has changed multiple times. Instead, Hayne's attorney argues that, yes, he made mistakes and should have called police when he didn't. But he walked into a bloody mess, and that's when Brooke Cruz was holding a baby.
Good evening, everyone. New and chilling details came out in a Cass County courtroom today about the brutal murder of Savannah Graywind, more than a year after she was lured, killed, and had her baby stolen from her womb.
Today, opening statements in the William Hayne trial laid out the roadmap for the days to come. The state argues Hayne didn't just conspire with Brooke Cruz, but also helped kill Savannah by tying a rope around her neck to kill her after Cruz began cutting the baby out of Savannah's body. The defense denies that account, saying Cruz went to extreme measures to convince Hayne she was pregnant, like sending fake ultrasounds. And once the baby was born, Hayne admits he lied to police to cover up the crime and the fact that they even had the baby. They named the baby Phoenix. Savannah's mom and dad were among the first witnesses called in the case and had emotional testimony today.
WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall listened as they talked about their final moments with their daughter and the suspicions as soon as Savannah went missing.
From the first day, August 19th, Savannah's mom and dad had that sinking feeling something just wasn't right.
I knew something was wrong.
Savannah was 8 months pregnant, and after agreeing to help a neighbor, never returned home. That neighbor, Brooke Cruz, told them Savannah went for a walk, a story they didn't buy.
She wouldn't go anywhere by herself. Her feet were swollen. She was very cautious, I guess.
Norberta Graywind and her husband Joe began looking, calling police, doing anything to find their daughter. The Graywinds testified they were also suspicious of William Hayne and Cruz. Joe asked Brooke if he could go inside their apartment number 5.
I said, from parent to parent, can I look in your house? And she said, I don't feel comfortable with you in my house.
Joe Graywind says even though that door was closed, he kept looking and suspecting the neighbors who lived feet away.
He came up to me, shook my hand. He said, I'm sorry for what happened to your daughter. I looked at him and I asked him, what happened to my daughter? He said he didn't know.
Each moment from testifying brought back the pain, reliving the very days of Savannah's last moments.
Does the search continue for her?
Yes.
And throughout all the searching, Savannah's parents held on to the unlikely possibility of seeing her again.
Did you think she'd be found alive?
I didn't think so, but I had hope.
Now they're holding on to their hope for justice for their daughter, who described herself as too beautiful for Earth. Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
Important puzzle pieces were put into place for jurors today on day 4 of the William Hayne murder conspiracy trial. Jurors heard their initial claims to investigators as they were questioned in the disappearance of Savannah Graywind and kidnapping of her newborn baby.
Tonight on WDAY News at 4, we broke down William Hayne's last interview with police and first heard his reluctant admission that Savannah's body was somewhere outside. On our news at 5, we heard Brooke Cruz' side of the story, what she first told police about what Savannah told her before she went missing. Now at 6, the lengths Cruz went to challenge and manipulate investigators, even acting indignant amid accusations she killed Savannah and stole the baby from her womb. About 3 months later, she would plead guilty in this case. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall is live now with how persistent Cruz was about her story, even when it wasn't true. Angeline?
Dana, Kirsten, for about an hour and a half, Brooke Cruz lied through her teeth, and we know that now since she gave a totally different story at her sentencing earlier in the year. Cruz originally told police she taught Savannah how to self-induce her labor, and then Savannah gave the baby girl away to her so Savannah could run away.
This opportunity was maybe a godsend, almost.
What opportunity?
The opportunity to potentially take care of a baby. You know what I mean?
Savannah, baby.
Yeah.
Cruz insisted in those initial interviews that she has no idea where Savannah is and says, quote, "I didn't hurt the girl." Multiple times she repeats this story, and again, detectives tell her that this doesn't match up with what William Hain has told them, who they describe as looking physically sick while going back through what happened on August 19th, 2017. At one point, Cruz admits to investigators that she made mistakes by keeping the baby and not telling them and lying to police when officers came to the door. But when investigators try to reason with Cruz, saying her story is a fake, she turns their own logic against them.
The story that you told is not believable.
I'm sorry it's not believable. Neither is your assertion that from 1:30 until 3:30, I did something horrible to this girl, took her baby, cleaned it up, hid the baby. What?
Where was Savannah when her dad came knocking?
What am I, super freaking human?
Throughout this entire week of court, William Hain has been very stoic and doesn't let a lot of emotion on his face at all. Today was perhaps the first time we saw him absolutely peel to what was going on in court. It was like he couldn't take his eyes off of the screen of Brooke Cruz's interview. Tonight at 10, we'll go through some of the DNA results presented in court today and if forensic experts found blood in the apartments where Hain and Cruz lived. Reporting live.
Now at 6, a man in jail with Hain over a year ago shared with the jury how Hain took Savannah's body out of the apartment without getting noticed. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall has been covering the trial each day for WDAY. She joins us live tonight with how Hain said he got Savannah's body out of the apartment. Angeline?
Dana, Kirsten, Brian Grubb was the last person to testify here at the Cass County Courthouse this afternoon, and he answered the question everyone has been wondering since the start of this case. How was Savannah taken out of the apartment without anyone noticing when her entire family was looking for her?
I was told that he had put it in a hollowed out dresser.
Okay, and did he tell you what he did with that dresser?
Nailed the front pieces back on and moved it down the stairs by himself.
Grubb was in a segregated portion of the Cass County Jail with William Hain when he told him this. He also admitted he dumped Savannah's body in the river and lied to police. Hain also told Grubb that Savannah was dead when he walked in. This contradicts, though, what Hain told police in an interview, saying Savannah was alive when he first saw her lying on the ground. Grubb says the two opened up to each other. At one point, Grubb told Hain about a difficult situation with an ex-girlfriend. Hain's response is telling.
I went through a very hard situation where I had to go through an abortion with an ex. And he made the comment about, well, I just would have cut the baby out of the...
Of course, this is what this entire case revolves around, a baby getting cut from a womb. Brian Grubb is not done testifying yet. He'll get back on the stand tomorrow morning for some follow-up questions that the state wants to ask him. Tonight at 10, we'll go through some search history found on some laptops and some cell phones taken out of Brooke Cruz's and William Hain's apartments. Reporting live, Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
Angeline McCall explains who took the stand and what piece of the puzzle they each brought to the case.
After spending up to a week in the Red River, Savannah Graywin's body was so decomposed, it was difficult for a trained medical examiner to determine an exact cause of death.
In this case, 22 years old female with ligature rope and, some injuries. That's That's a complicated and very concerning case, so we look for everything.
Graywind either died by being strangled with a rope or bleeding to death from the crude C-section. But surprisingly, the BCI couldn't detect any traces of blood in the apartment where she was killed. What BCI could find, bizarre search history on electronic devices, dating back months before Savannah went missing.
On February 15th of 2017 at 10:01 in the morning, how to make a noose, how long does it take to pass out from not breathing, missing persons law, North Dakota.
BCI said they couldn't definitively say if the searches were done by William Hain or Brooke Cruz. Also on the stand today, Hain's ex-fiance, who said strangling had been part of a sexual fantasy for him.
Once in a while, he would want to try to strangle me.
And did he ever bind you?
No.
And the last witness testimony came from a man who spent time with William Hain in jail. He answered a question everyone has wondered. How was Savannah taken out of the apartment without anyone noticing?
I was told that he had put it in a hollowed out dresser, nailed the front pieces back on, and moved it down the stairs by himself.
He shared some of the conversations the two had together, at one point about ex-girlfriends.
I went through a very hard situation where I had to go through an abortion with an ex, and he made the comment about, well, I just would have cut the baby out of the
A comment that brings us back to why a jury is in court, to either determine if he helped cut Savannah's baby or conspired to murder her in the process. Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
Today on day 6 of William Hain's murder conspiracy case came after an hour-and-a-half delay. The defense brought new evidence from a jailhouse snitch who says Cruz shared a much different story with her.
Jennifer Robinson is an inmate at the Dakota Women's Prison in New England, North Dakota. She has a lengthy criminal history and has been convicted of giving false information to police in the past. Robinson claims Cruz told her she strangled Savannah to death and cut her baby out of her in less than 3 minutes. Robinson also says Cruz believed Hain and Savannah may have had a relationship and believes Savannah's baby belonged to Hain. Cruz said everything Robinson said was absolutely false.
I have very rarely spoken of this case with anybody.
WDAY asked the defense and the prosecution if they're working on getting Robinson to testify in court. Prosecutors told us there's work to be done. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall is live with the story Brooke told in court today and the pressure she says she felt from William Hain to get a baby. Angeline?
Dana Kirsten, more people came out here to the Cass County Courthouse today than any other day of this trial. They were here for Brooke Cruz's testimony, and again, she went into gruesome detail about how she cut Savannah and murdered her. She also testified that she faked a pregnancy, and when William Hain figured out that she was lying, she says that she felt frantic to get a baby.
I knew what he wanted. I knew what he expected, and I wanted to give it to him.
Cruz says that she and Hain never explicitly talked about a plan to take Savannah's baby, but that's how she interpreted some of his comments, like, quote, "Yeah, I've just seen that Graywind girl downstairs and she is really pregnant." For the first time, in her words, we heard from Brooke Cruz about how she knocked Savannah unconscious, grabbed a knife and cut her and reached in and took Savannah's baby from her womb. Cruz told the court Savannah was coming in and out of consciousness.
I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I'd done.
How does this look to you now, a year later?
Horrible. Atrocious. Sickening.
Brooke Cruz confirmed what we've heard from other testimonies, saying Hain used a rope to finish off killing Savannah, and the baby was in the apartment during 3 separate police searches. But we found out for the very first time that not only was that baby inside the apartment during these searches, but she was also lying wrapped up in blankets, at least during one of these searches, on top of the bed when officers walked through. Now, we also learned that Savannah's body was inside of the apartment during all 3 of these searches. At first, she was inside a bathroom closet, and then later she was inside a hollowed out dresser, and she was there until early Monday morning until they took her out of the apartment and dumped Savannah's body in the Red River. Reporting live, Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
Angeline McCall with the story of Brooke Cruz and what she told jurors today in court.
What happened to Savannah is a difficult story. Difficult for family to listen to, and difficult for even Savannah's killer to retell.
Horrible. atrocious, sickening.
For the first time, we heard from Brooke Cruz firsthand.
I started cutting the baby out.
Cruz describes how she took the knife, cut Savannah open, and took her baby. And as she was doing this out-of-hospital C-section, this is the moment Cruz says her boyfriend walked in and soon grabbed a rope and pulled it tight around Savannah's neck.
And he said, if she wasn't dead before, she is now.
Cruz testified she and Hain never talked explicitly about killing Savannah or taking her baby, but after months of faking a pregnancy, Cruz says her boyfriend figured out she was lying and pressured her into getting a newborn to call their own.
I took that to mean that I better have a baby, and it didn't matter how I got it.
Once she did get a baby, we learned how the couple kept the little girl in their apartment during 3 different searches. Hazley Jo was just feet away from her mother, dead, and stowed away in a closet first, then moved to a hollowed-out dresser. From start to finish, it's a difficult story to retell and listen to, but one that, according to Cruz, must be shared.
I can't undo what I've done. But I can't do everything in my power to own up to what I did.
Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
Good evening, everyone. Jurors got an hour and a half of deliberations in before being sent home for the day. On day 8 of William Hain's trial, they're deciding if they'll convict Hain as a co-conspirator in the murder of Savannah Greywind.
They heard from 2 final witnesses today before closing arguments. The first witness came forward as a jailhouse snitch with a story that contradicts Brooke Cruz's tale of events.
Because that guy is going to spend the rest of his life in jail for something he didn't choke that girl.
You weren't there. You don't know the evidence.
He told me that he didn't do it. He was shaking.
This woman, Jennifer Robinson, was brought in by the defense to bolster Hain's innocence. Hain himself took the stand right after, saying the first time he saw Savannah Greywind, her lips were blue and she was lying on the ground in the bathroom. He says he first responded, "What the F?" Then he testifies what was running through his head.
I'm just thinking to myself, everything's over. Like, our whole lives together, it's over.
Hain says that he didn't put any type of rope around Savannah's neck. It was already there when he walked into the bloody scene.
Hain admits he helped clean up the blood, but he didn't kill or agree to kill Savannah. So tonight the jury will sleep on all of the evidence they have heard in this trial.
WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall joins us live with the final thoughts jurors were left with from closing arguments. Angeline?
Dana, Kirsten, jury deliberations started exactly at 3 o'clock here at the Cass County Courthouse, and they went until 4:30 deliberating until they were sent home. But as the state put it, they have a lot to consider in this case. They basically have to weigh whose testimonies are credible, because right now the only 2 people who actually know what happened are telling 2 totally very different stories. But what this case comes down to is 90 minutes, or the timeline of what happened between 2 p.m. and 3:30. It's up to the jury, 12 people, to decide if in those 90 minutes, William Hain walked into a bloody mess and jumped in to help after Savannah was dead, or if she was still alive, and he agreed either before the fact or in a matter of seconds that he was going to help Brooke Cruz with the murder.
The defendant got right in there, and they continued to finish up the plan. They hid the body. They lied to the police. Everything was going as planned until that baby was found.
It isn't evidence of an agreement to kill. The only evidence of a conspiracy is the testimony of one of the most devious, skilled liars we've ever seen.
Deliberations will pick up again tomorrow morning, but both the defense and the state have encouraged jurors to go back through and listen to material that they've already seen or heard. Now we're on day 8, so of course that's a lot to go through. Reporting live, Angela McCall, WDAY News.
The accused, William Hain, took the stand right before closing arguments to convince jurors he's an innocent man, not a co-conspirator in Savannah Greywind's murder. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall with the final 2 witnesses of the trial.
I heard the baby.
On day 8 of the trial, William Hain took a stand in his own defense, giving his version of events the day Savannah died.
And I remember feeling elated, just like, oh my God, she had the baby while I was at work.
But what started as excitement, thinking his live-in girlfriend Brooke Cruz had given birth, quickly turned into horror as he describes walking into the bathroom.
I think first I said, what the
And this is where his story is different with Brooke Cruz's, who has admitted to her role in the murder. Hain denies grabbing a rope and putting it around Savannah's neck. He says Savannah was dead when he walked in.
Her lips were blue. I remember that. That stuck out in my head. She wasn't moving.
He admits he helped in the cleanup and got rid of the body with his girlfriend. Savannah was stuffed in a dresser.
Right at the edge of the bridge, we unloaded, took her to the side, threw the dresser over the side of the bridge.
Hain admits he made mistakes, but says he's not a co-conspirator or a murderer.
There was no agreement.
The only thing you can deny still, isn't it?
No.
A jailhouse snitch who is serving time with Brooke Cruz also backs up his story.
Because that guy is going to spend the rest of his life in jail for something he didn't choke that girl.
Fellow inmate Jennifer Robinson told jurors that Brooke Cruz admitted to her that she is solely responsible for Savannah's murder.
It's just laying heavy on my heart that I knew that stuff, and it was really bothering me.
Now it's left up to a jury to decide whose story is more believable and if Hain will face the rest of his life in prison. Angeline McCall, WDAY News.
William Hain has been found not guilty of conspiring to kill Savannah Graywind.
The acquittal on a double-A felony means he won't serve a life prison sentence, but he still will serve time behind bars. WDAY News reporter Angeline McCall was in the courtroom this afternoon. She joins us live tonight with what it was like when the verdict was read and what it all means now. Angeline.
Drew, Amy, this is the moment that we have waited for after 9 days here at the Cass County Courthouse to learn if a jury would convict William Hain as a co-conspirator in Savannah's murder. And the answer is no, that they came out with a not guilty verdict. And as that was being read out in court, the Graywinds were there and their reaction was pure sadness. Joe Graywind, Savannah's dad, looked up at the ceiling, put his hands on his head like this, looking up almost as if in disbelief. Savannah's sister Kayla just had tears flowing down her face after this was read. William Hain had a very different reaction, and we were able to capture that on camera. You can kind of see him sigh in relief knowing that he's not convicted of this specific crime. He has pleaded guilty to 2 other charges, giving false information to police and conspiracy to commit kidnapping. For those 2 charges, he could spend more than 20 years in prison. Sentencing has not been set yet. A date for him has not been set yet, but that is expected to be within the next 60 days or so. Reporting live, Angeline McCall, WDAY News.